Hey everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2100 hours Central European Time. My name is Geerte Frenken, and this show is all about the topic of protective mothers and their children. So, what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive fathers by many means necessary, which is an uphill battle in today's global corrupt family court system that thrives on paternal entitlements. And I want to start today with an announcement about an event by Mothers of Lost Children that's going to take place in Washington, D.C. And when you go to Facebook, you'll see this Mothers of Lost Children March in D.C. And if you scroll down, you'll see here that it's on September 13th and September 14th. And the updates are here in the details, and you'll see that on the 13th, there's going to be a lobby day where the Mothers of Lost Children are going to meet with representatives to speak in greater detail about the issues that we face as protective mothers, and we're going to be requesting congressional oversight hearings. There will also be a congressional briefing on that day, and then the next day we meet again at 10:30 at Lafayette Park in front of the White House to do a march. And so I would love it if everyone would attend. You can see here that if you need accommodations, there are shared rooms available for $39 a night, includes breakfast, etc. So if you want to join it, I would love to, if you do, because we need all the mothers to come out in massive amounts to fight for our cause. So just go to Facebook and type in Mothers of Lost Children March in DC and lobby events, and you will find this particular event on Facebook. So let me stop sharing my screen here, and I want to just start now with introducing my guest. This is protective mother Nicole, and she lost custody of her son to her abusive ex, despite the fact that her ex admitted in court to an addiction to hardcore porn, and despite the fact that she had evidence that her ex exposed their son to extreme porn, alcohol, and drugs since the age of 10. Now, Nicole, you're still on mute, so go ahead and unmute yourself so the audience can hear you. And what I would like to start our interview with is have you talk about share with the audience what happened when you found out that your son was getting exposed to extreme porn by your ex at the age of 10. What happened at that point?
Okay. Well, I'll just start out saying that I knew that my husband had a pornography addiction, and that actually became apparent within the first year of marriage. And as a result, the marriage was celibate because he just wanted to be alone with a computer and not a real human being. So I knew he had that issue himself, and went to lots of marital counseling, but his behavior with that never changed. It ended the marriage, that issue, eventually, but I never thought that he would ever expose the children to that. I felt, it seemed, and he told me that was just his thing. At any rate, it became increasingly apparent in this case. And the first time I became aware that the eldest child had developed a problem was when that child was in 8th grade. Both parents became aware that he was staying up all night. And did I know that it was being made available to him? No, at that point, I did not know. In retrospect, it's always 2020. If you think back, yeah, there probably were indications. And I was naive about computers, and I was naive about pornography. I just I had no idea that our child was viewing hardcore. We had another apartment. Well, we had a marital home. And so I think our child was accessing hardcore in the marital home. Earlier than I realized. And also there was an apartment that was kept by my ex-husband. And so it was certainly happening there. All right. So then by 8th grade, I become aware that both parents become aware that it's adversely affecting our very, very bright child who's always been a wonderful student and involved in many activities. Well, he starts to quit all his activities. He's staying up all night. Yes, it becomes apparent he has a problem, and we tried a number of different solutions. Nothing was working. Then I would say so this is around 8th grade, and we were having some problems with the marital home, just having some issues that needed to be repaired. So we moved out as a family temporarily to the one-bedroom apartment while repairs and assessments were being made to the marital home. It appeared there were some serious environmental problems such as mold and things like that. So we were all cooped up together in a one-bedroom apartment, and our son kept trying to watch hardcore while doing his homework.
How did you find out?
He wouldn't let us see. He kept saying, well, he needed, the computer to do absolutely everything, every assignment. But then he also admitted, yes, I watch when my parents leave the house, and he admitted to a lot of it. And then, but also we would certainly find material on the computers, and which obviously came from him, and then he would deny it. But when I think back, I think also it turned out his father was leaving hardcore just open in the browser all the time, and was the father refused. I would insist upon parental installation of parental monitoring and limits, and he would install it for a day or two, and then he always disabled it, saying it interfered with normal functioning of the computer. So I wanted the computer to be in the family room. He wouldn't do that. It had to be in the home office. At any rate, so our son's problem just got worse and worse, and it was clear to both of us that our child was changing. And so then here we are cooped up in the one-bedroom apartment, and it became obvious that the marital home was going to require a lot of repair, and it would be costly. It would be time-consuming. It was not recommended that we move back in until the repairs were done. But my ex was very impatient with that process, and we were also experiencing health problems with the contaminants that were in the home. So the long and the short of it is he ordered me to leave the one-bedroom apartment. He ordered me to leave, and leave with the children and just go back to the marital home. I could not do that. It wasn't recommended. I ended up going to a hotel with the children. But to me, the most disturbing part was, and it really became a major theme for the divorce. My ex looked me straight in the eye, and he said, I'm going to tell everyone that none of this ever happened, and I'm going to lie, and I'm going to tell everyone that you're crazy. So I think that included the pornography problem of our child, and that included the problems with the marital home and the repairs. And so I left. I took the children to a hotel, and my ex, and we were still married at that time, he contacted all of our medical providers and told them that I had gone crazy. And, he was always very proud of my parenting, and always told me, what a great job you're doing, and the children are doing so well. They're all excellent students. And so, he just decided that, and he was encouraged by his family, to behave in this way. So then it was all a process of beginning invalidating me, whatever I said. It became difficult to get medical care, if the father is calling and saying, don't listen to anything the mother says. But these were all just tactics of harassment and invalidation that were really from a playbook, it turned out, on how to handle a scorched earth type divorce with children.
And this is also the reason why you are appearing today in disguise, because the harassment is still ongoing, as I understand. And I wanted the viewers to understand why you're wearing the hat and the veil and the glasses and all that.
Yeah.
And obviously you're under a pseudonym, and I think it's very brave of you to come on the show. And it's also an inspiration for other protective mothers who are worried coming on the show, you showing them now how they can still participate and tell their story, share their story in a safe way. So you're like I said, you're still being harassed by your ex, but at the point in the story where you're at now, he's just starting his campaign of harassment by telling everyone that you're crazy.
Yes.
I also understand he hacked your emails as well, right?
Yeah, all kinds of hacking occurred throughout the divorce process repeatedly, and I was reading every communication with my attorneys all along. And so, yeah, and he's a very intelligent man, and then that's his area of expertise. And so at any rate, he, any normal parental activity of mine became something that could be distorted. And for instance, one of the tactics was no matter where I went with the children, he would claim that he didn't know where I was, that you've taken the children, I don't know where they are, and you're harming them. And so eventually, yeah, we were, it was very unpleasant. Let's see, we, a lot of harassment by email and constant text messaging. And if you don't return a text message immediately, then there's, just threats and abuse and so forth. Eventually, he just said, I'm sorry, he called me up one day. I'm sorry, I've been sneaky, but I've emptied all of the bank accounts. Your credit card's been canceled. You'll have to pay all the overdraft charges, and I'm filing for divorce. I did try and talk him out of it. I just thought, I thought it wouldn't be good for the children. And we had managed to, even though there are problems in the marriage, clearly, a celibate marriage, one spouse addicted to pornography, those are not good circumstances. And I just had to there wasn't going to be normal intimacy. He told me that eventually. No, I'm not ever going to do that with you. And I thought, well, let's just try and keep a cooperative friendship going to raise the children, but it didn't work out that way. So then I had literally no money, and I'm in a hotel. I did manage to get my first attorney, and he did something again. The first time my ex went to an attorney, he literally, I remember I met up with him, was doing some sort of child exchange, and he was grinning and skipping and very happy. And he said to me, I didn't know that fathers had lots and lots of rights. And he was going on and on about fathers' rights. I thought that was very strange. Of course, fathers have rights. And I had always, frankly, I had always badgered him to be involved, more involved with the children. I wanted a partnership. I needed that. So, and I had health problems in the marriage and during the marriage. And yeah, we needed to have a partnership. I was surprised and I thought it was odd. And it turned out that he would be referring to sort of a playbook of really kind of cruel and deceptive things to do during the divorce. So my first attorney, I only had for a very brief period of time, and my ex figured out a way. Again, it was really quite clever, but figured out a way to have my first attorney quit. He tricked him and into what my first attorney referred to as an ethical minefield. I can go into what tactic he used, but then I was left without an attorney. And of course, when you have a gap, not being represented, they were filing all kinds of motions during that time and kind of burying you in vexatious litigation. Let's see. I think another technique is isolating. And so that started very early in the divorce process, contacting my family and friends and trying to isolate me from anyone who would be helpful in any way, supportive, financially. At this point in the process, my ex arranged a specious CPS, family assessment investigation of me by feeding false information to one of the children's school. So then I had that to deal with, and the family health problems and needing to find another attorney. So the CPS investigation, I was accused of medical abuse, which is taking the children to the doctor too often. And anyway, I went through that very stressful process, and I was completely exonerated. I made all records available to them, of course. That went on for 3 or 4 months. Yes, so I was exonerated of that, and they just said to me, look, well, you get your letter, but they also said, just continue to care for the children as you always have. Take them to the doctor when needed. So he was very disappointed that didn't work, but then he would taunt me throughout the divorce process and say, all it takes is one more call about you, that he felt like he could easily do that again. All right, so moving on in this process, I'm exonerated. By this time, I have my second attorney. Let's see. All right. So, right. Okay. Okay, so basically, let's fast forward to the worst thing that happened. Go ahead.
Yeah, at this point, you still have the children living with you, correct?
Yes, that's true. And they were living with me in my apartment. And I was certainly wanting lots of co-parenting and visiting and so forth. We did not agree over how to deal with the environmental problems at the marital home, but eventually all of that worked out. I'm on my second attorney by this time, and yes, all 3 children are living with me. But it was a really terrible year. Everyone was having health problems, and then the eldest child, under all of this stress, this was the freshman year of high school. I really didn't want a divorce going on when that child is making that kind of an adjustment, and a brilliant and wonderful child. And this child had gotten into a high school for academically advanced students. And it was so unfortunate that this is all happening. But because the pornography addiction of this child was really out of control. And it was a daily struggle. He was wanting to view pornography. He was even rather open about it. He'd be trying to stay up all night. And I kept the second attorney informed very, very carefully, always letting Sean Kelly, yes, always letting him know exactly what was going on, what my concerns were, that the child was really struggling. He needed treatment. He needed help. He also, this eldest child, had a history of head injury and 3 or 4 concussions. And so I was able to get him a social worker and who helped me search for a treatment program, because there's actually very few. If an adolescent has problems with pornography, there's very few treatment programs. So we were searching and searching, the social worker and myself, for some kind of help for my son. He was triaged actually to the top of the waiting list for the program and the help that she had to offer. So she had done an assessment of him, and he was in great need of intervention for many reasons. So, and his pornography issues are just one reason. So, so we've got a social worker, and it was a very difficult freshman year for him. And all right, so I met, and I also kept my ex meticulously informed about any issues going on with the children, and I documented things. We agreed, he agreed with me that our eldest child had changed so much from being a good student to a student that no longer seemed to care about his grades, or just could not pull it all together, because he was gaming and also viewing the pornography compulsively and excessively. So we agreed that after his freshman year, he would get some kind of treatment, and then by the time school rolled around in September, we would have a plan as to how to do things differently, doing things better, how to help this child. So he agreed with me, and I, with the help of the social worker, I found a wonderful program. Unfortunately, it wasn't local. Couldn't find anything locally. So our child ended up going to the program, and we had tried to, there was a local program, I think Phoenix House, but that's for chemical abuse issues. He was assessed there. They recommended 3 times a week group therapy, but our child refused to go. He was completely, his behavior was really out of control. He was acting out in so many ways, and he wasn't cooperating at all with any kind of outpatient treatment. So he ended up having to be safely transported to the residential treatment program during the summer. And it was a great relief, because I interviewed so many programs and practitioners to try and find one that was a good fit. And when I spoke to this program, they absolutely had amazing expertise on how to help an adolescent who basically just has internet addiction, overuse of gaming and looking up videos and pornography and all of that. So
what's the name of the program?
Oh, it's called it's called Oxbow Academy, and it's in Utah. And very kind, very helpful people, very knowledgeable, willing to work with the family and to do Skype therapy sessions and all that. It was amazing to talk to them, because they absolutely knew what I was talking about. It was as if they had a video camera in the home, and they totally understood the problems. And so, yes, I heard from the program. I visited it first to make sure it was a nice program and well run. I invited my ex to come and look at the program. He declined. He didn't want to go look at it. Anyway, so yes, our son went to the program, and he was there for about 3.5 weeks. And I heard that he was doing really well. He was adapting to the program. He really liked his therapist. He was opening up to his therapist and disclosing and doing really well. And so I was bubbling over with happiness, and I reported to, we were still married at this point and early in the divorce process. I said, he's doing great, and here's what the therapist says. Um, and we were, the therapist told me that there would be a therapeutic polygraph fairly soon administered. And when my ex heard that, he just completely freaked out and panicked and went into a rage. He kind of injured me. I was alone with him at that time, and I don't really need to go into the nitty gritty of that. It was very unpleasant. He was in an absolute panic and raging. And it turns out he surreptitiously went to the program and abducted the child from the treatment program. Took our child out against clinical recommendations, without my knowledge. And this is where the second attorney, there were lots of problems with the second attorney, but when the treatment center called me and then they said, the father is here and he's waving around papers saying he has more custody than you have. And, it's against our clinical recommendation. We don't think, they thought there were problems. The father wasn't wanting to cooperate and have therapy sessions. I think they had one phone session of therapy where my ex-husband flew into a rage at my son, at the therapist, and the child was so upset. The therapist not having the phone calls for a little while with the father until things. Anyway, things weren't going that well, I guess, with the father and how he was interacting with the therapist and with our son. But anyway, he was abducted. He was waving around what turned out to be a temporary, it's called pendente lite. It's a temporary, I guess just agreement about where the children are living and how much financial support they're getting. And to backtrack, the second attorney deliberately and against, I told him on the phone, I told him by email, the children are living with me and things, I'm doing a good job, as I've always done, taking care of them. The father has a pornography addiction, porn problems himself. He admits to that. And our child is accessing porn. The father is just not handling that aspect very well at all. I kept him informed, and he deliberately wrote that agreement, placing the child with the father.
And that was your own attorney?
Yes, yeah. He told me, he said, "Oh, you're never going to need this document. It's just really, it's only about how much child support is going, and this is never going to be needed. It'll never be an issue for you. Your custody hearing is coming up. Don't worry about it." I had a really uneasy feeling. I protested. I think he actually hung up on me and said, "Well,
What's the name of this attorney?"
Oh, this is Sean Kelly. And, he wrote it the way he wanted to write it and against what I asked him to do, and told me I would never need it. Well, that turned out to be the very document that my ex took to the treatment facility, and was yelling at all of the staff there. They had to call the sheriff. He was very intimidating. He's waving it around saying he has more custody. And all that document actually said, even though it was written incorrectly, is that the eldest child lived with father. That's all, that there was physical custody, but they didn't understand what those terms meant. And while we were trying, I was on the phone with the treatment facility, he slipped away with our child while we were trying to straighten it out over the phone. But Sean Kelly, in addition, when I called him for help, while my ex-husband was at the facility waving the document around, I called him and I asked for help, and he cussed me out. Yes, and was not helpful. And apparently said he was in a deposition. Well, I'm sure, I mean, that was awkward timing, and I was having my own emergency, but he cussed me out, and he would not provide a document that said that I had just as much custody as my husband. I said, look, can you just fax to the treatment facility something that says these parents have joint legal custody, joint legal custody. And the document that got waved around, it simply said that the child was living with father. And, you know, indeed, there was, our son lived for a few months at his father's condo while I went and I had surgery in another location. And so, yeah, I mean, there was a short period of time when he lived with his dad at the condo. But at the time, my second attorney, Sean Kelly, wrote that document, our son had returned to live with me. And it was my intention all along that he live with me and that I get him the help that he needed. So now we have, he said to me, I'm not going to write anything like that. You might use it. I'm not going to write anything like that. You might call the police and to have your son and your husband tracked down. I'm like, yeah, I think they need to be tracked down. He's been taken out of the facility.
He's abducted, yeah.
Right, abducted. And, the facility they were traumatized by it. They said that it had never happened to them before. They felt awful about it. So then, yeah, he was, and here's where it starts to get very disturbing. My ex-husband took our child to a hotel locally. And then actually, I think he took him immediately to the airport, maybe a hotel for one night and then the airport. Immediately opened up his work laptop. And this is a work laptop that he uses for his top secret government work, security clearance, with a top secret security clearance, and said, here, I'm sure you've missed a computer. Enjoy yourself. So I could actually see, because I had passwords and access, I could see that my son was, as soon as he was taken out of the treatment facility, he was immediately on the internet constantly, even in the airport, on his father's work laptop. And that continued. So then our child was taken to the one-bedroom apartment and sequestered there, and would not let the child see me. And then I could see, I had my son's laptop, and I could see that our son was on Facebook and Gmail, Google Plus, constantly all through the night. And so then that child, our child, remained the rest of the summer. I guess it was like a month and a half left or something, alone in an apartment, and his only companion was the computer constantly. And so then what began to trickle in was him exchanging cartoon child porn with his peers, accessing mutilation, the most gruesome, hardcore, disturbing, bizarre pornography, recommending in chats to his peers that he had found some child porn sites and come and look, this stuff is amazing. This is great. These are the chats that we're picking up at this point on Dad's work laptop. All of this is going on. And he is apparently at this point also utilizing the webcam of his dad's work laptop to meet with strangers on the internet and sexual activity.
How did you know all of this, or how do you
Yeah,
know
well,
that?
eventually I got the computer forensics on that laptop.
Okay.
So yeah, it showed uh, my ex-husband himself collecting incest porn, mother-son incest porn. I don't really understand that, on that work laptop, and then extensive collections of our son's hardcore anal porn, right on, just stored openly on the desktop. So, and also you could see there were webcam sessions with um, Google Plus adults. Uh, yeah, okay. Yeah, not good,
Yeah, we
not
don't
good.
have to get to the details,
No,
but let's
right, nitty gritty.
conclude that it was extreme.
Yeah, it was very extreme what was going on. And then, so now let's see, at this point, I also found out that my ex's attorney was the mother-in-law of the co-counsel of my own attorney. So there, I guess that's a conflict of interest and lots of problems with that attorney. So let's see.
So did you fire that attorney, and did you get
Yeah,
another?
yeah. And then you see it becomes very difficult to find another attorney. Nobody wants to take that kind of case. So yes, then before he was fired, I interviewed many attorneys, and the ones that are, what I later discovered is the attorneys that are legitimate, that know that your case is rigged, then they'll say, I'm sorry this is happening to you, but I'm busy on that date when you have a hearing. They will not take your case. And the ones that are I would say rather corrupt, yeah, you'll eventually find someone for a very large retainer to take your case, but they're really working cooperatively with your ex's attorney. And I did find that out eventually, that the entire process was a scam. So we can get into that later. I mean, in terms of the narrative, for a year, I was told that our child, there was no cooperation with any custody agreement at all. So for a year, he's still sequestered there, and I'm told that he can't visit with me because he's doing his homework. Right, but you can see that he's up till 3-4 in the morning. He's doing the same compulsive behaviors, risky behaviors on the internet. Let's see. And then, eventually, yes, we got to the custody. We came up to the custody hearing. And by then I had found my third attorney. So that, okay, that was, and by this time now we have, there's been a lot of vexatious litigation. As soon as my son was abducted, and parental abduction, then there was an onslaught of emergency motions by my ex's attorney, that I couldn't leave I couldn't leave the immediate metropolitan area. A lot of coercive control, a lot of just trying to regulate and control every aspect of my life, and of course accusing me of all kinds of things that I didn't do. Lots of fake emergency motions to limit custody and to imply that I'm a harmful parent. And
It's a strategy that the father's rights guys use. They will just put you on the defensive by just basically, hammering away at you with
right.
motion after motion, and they're all nonsense motions.
Right, and it's absolute drivel when you read the motions. It's statement after statement that you never made, or if you did make anything even close to that statement, it's been grossly distorted, and a lot of it is utterly fabricated.
They're all
Yeah,
but this is
right,
what they do
yeah,
because, in family court, they don't look at evidence.
right.
So the way
Not if
the
it's the
the
protective.
judge the judge will just look at the pictures that are painted by the parents. So if you're vexatiously litigating as an abuser and you're just painting the picture of your ex-wife to be crazy and dangerous and whatever, and you are the one with the integrity, not reversing that tactics and not going into this defensive mode and responding to all this nonsense. The judge will just look at it and base his or her decisions on opinion, just by looking at, well, this particular parent, seems more together than the other one. And here I will share my screen for a second, because what's really important here is to realize that these pedophile rings are really going up into the judicial system and into the political system, and they applaud anything that has to do with child porn, pedophilia, and this is the real problem that we're facing, and we'll get more into that in a little bit later on in the interview, what the agenda is behind this judicial trafficking, this judicial child trafficking. So,
Right. So, and at this point, like all the other protective parents, I had no idea that was all really very fake. What your own attorney is doing, what their attorneys are doing, and frankly, the judges, they're totally in on it. The whole thing is fake. Really, it is. So then we're coming up to the custody trial, and my third attorney, maybe for your first one or two sessions, they seem sort of polite and maybe helpful, but then they kind of drop that act. And so he was too busy. I'm sure he was busy, but he was too busy to meet with me coming up to the custody trial. I met with his associate. Nothing got accomplished. So we're coming up to the custody trial. And there's been no preparation for it. And I'm demanding, I'm begging, I'm getting really worried here. And so, but meanwhile, here's the interesting thing. So as soon as the child is abducted from the treatment center and sequestered, I'm buried under all the vexatious litigation, and then a custody evaluator is appointed to evaluate both parents. So yes, okay, that happened. And so then all of, let's see, for how many months did we work through that? We have probably about 3 months of intensive interviews with the custody evaluator before the custody trial, right? And so, yes, I meet many times with him, and so do all of the children and my ex. And so I brought to him an astonishing amount of evidence, and we're talking videos that I put on flash drives so you could see what my son is accessing, all of the chat logs. And he tells me that, and this is a very experienced forensic psychologist, Dr. Stanton Samanau, that it's some of the worst material he has ever seen in his career, because my son is swapping material from 4chan that has been extracted from that website. He's swapping instructions with his peers on how to rape, torture, kill children, how to molest, how to trick your neighbor's child. It was just horrendous. And so we've got that whole document of that, and we have 135-page document of stolen credentials for paid pornography memberships. Yeah,
Oh,
so let's see, I mean, I can go through, the evidence is absolutely horrendous that I bring to Dr. Samanow about what's going on. So at this point, our son has even acting out in the community, stealing underwear from the bedrooms of his friends' mothers and the sisters of his friends' mothers. And, that's starting to get very disturbing. He is acting out. I'll just read to you some of it.
okay,
Well,
but before you do
yeah,
that, I
yeah.
mean, let me ask you,
Mhm.
so this custody evaluator is looking at all this evidence that you're presenting. Did he call CPS?
No, no. But you see, CPS was called by the therapist when the child is taken against clinical recommendations and with the kind of behaviors. And I shared also what our son was accessing when he was sequestered. I shared that with the therapist. He certainly confirmed that, this is very disturbing material. It's damaging and the child is only 14 at this point. And so he called, and let's see, I think he called CPS and, the social worker who had helped to find a treatment center, she called CPS. So there were calls going to CPS. I was told by the social worker, my son's social worker, that I had to call. Otherwise, she would have concerns about me. So I think we were on a joint phone call to CPS because I'm going to get in trouble if I'm doing
If you're
nothing.
not reporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm reporting. And so now the police, at this point, also the police were involved. The Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is involved at this point. And this is all what I'm juggling, and I'm injured by my ex, injured in the head, neck, and spine.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah, really struggling to function, and with all this going on. And he was also, stalking me. Now, the stalking and the harassment eased up when the custody evaluator came on board because I guess he did not want to look bad. The interesting thing is, as soon as you get pulled into family court, all the family court attorneys tell you, you do not ask for a protective order. Don't ask. Because, and my family was very worried about me, my family and friends. They said, you've got to get that. And but then I was told by all of the attorneys, if you obtain that, if you ask for it, the judge will punish you. The judge will be angry and will take custody away immediately from you. You will lose custody if you ask for that. Okay. And the other thing is, they also tell you at the outset, if you say that your ex is neglecting, abusing, not parenting in a good way, if you say that, if you report that to the judge, or if the judge will be angry with you, and you will lose custody.
This
So
is
you're told,
ridiculous.
yes, it's ridiculous. This whole world is utterly the opposite of what it should be. It's bizarre, truly bizarre. And so you're thinking the whole time, you have a feeling of profound disorientation. You're like, it feels, because you're thinking there'll be justice and kindness and intelligence and caring about children. And there's none of that.
No,
And
it's like a parallel universe that's upside down. Yeah.
it really is. And it's disorienting. And I had the feeling all along that I wasn't in the United States. I'm like, well, I'm in some kind of terrible third world country where there's no justice. And then you also have a feeling that you're not in this century, that you're maybe several centuries back during the time of the Salem witch trials, because it just feels so extremely backwards.
Well, it's not
And
even backwards. It's like we're just targeted for trying to protect our children, and
exactly.
it doesn't make any sense other than to conclude that children seem to be considered the property of men, which I call paternal fascism. and it seems to be rampant globally, because your story is not unique, unfortunately.
Right.
But we'll
It
get
is.
into
It's
that.
really, aside from the details, it's exactly the same story as your previous guests, and it's exactly the same pattern that you see in other countries.
Yep.
And the uniformity of the sequence of how these things are done, the tactics that are used are astonishingly uniform.
Well,
And
let
you'll
me
see it in other.
let me share here my screen for a second, because the tactics that you're talking about are really important. And if you go to my website, freejasmine.com, and Jasmine is spelled like this, and you go here to the reflection tab, I actually inserted about 10 minutes of audio on this page that explains the scripting that you've mentioning, the way this playbook is run, the script that these fathers use together with the attorneys and the guardian ad litems and the custody evaluators, and how they steal the children from the protective mothers as soon as the protective mothers show evidence of abuse, or when the children report the abuse. So if you play this, it's about 10 minutes. It explains exactly step by step how these abusive fathers use the court system, and how the court system is happily obliging to these abusers. And we'll get to why this is all happening a little bit later. I want you to finish your story first.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to say that. I present a huge amount of evidence to the custody evaluator about what is taking place in the father's apartment with our child, and our child is skipping school a lot of the time because he's so tired. He's up all night. So then eventually I actually obtained the computer forensics of my son's laptop, and also hard drives that are in the father's apartment. And so those computer forensics validated and proved everything I was saying. So we have, it's a huge amount of material, and it's a big problem. Just a lot of hardcore porn. Eventually what we find, and we find that there is actually our son is accessing a child rape simulator, which comes out of Japan. It's, I don't even want to say the name of it, but
No, don't.
No. So it's cartoon child porn, but it's a game that's played. The player is a male that rapes a mother and her underage daughters very sadistically. It's realistic. It's extremely sadistic. It's really sick. So now that's we have evidence that was downloaded and played, as well as, we're getting chats about drug use at this point too. Let's see. We have, and actually the expert who did the computer forensics said to me, "This is some of the worst stuff I've ever seen." He said, "You're not going to have any problem now. Your son's will live with you and get treatment. This pretty much seals the deal." No, it didn't. I eventually realized it didn't matter how much evidence I showed to the custody evaluator, to the attorneys, to other mental health professionals that eventually came into the case. It didn't matter. And whenever I went before a judge, I wasn't allowed to show any evidence. I wasn't allowed to speak. So that's very suspicious right there.
Well, what happened? What did your attorney do at this point? So you're in court, you're at the custody trial, you want to submit.
Right, we're coming up to the custody trial, and I'll say that this is third attorney, Bill Reichart. He, I think that I know they were all working at this point collusively together, but at this point, he doesn't have time for me. And one thing he did do, which it was good, it wasn't enough. My ex and his attorney, way too easily and enthusiastically, once I presented the computer forensics, they agreed that our child would have a very robust parental monitoring software installed on his laptop. Frankly, he shouldn't have been using a laptop at this point. That part was absurd right there, so that both parents will be able to see exactly what the child is doing. So it's a very detailed court order by agreement to monitor the child's activities on
This
the
is all
laptop.
nonsense because
Nonsense, yes.
your son can access another laptop at the house.
Exactly.
The
The whole thing was absurd. Right, yes. And so all it did really, really all is it kept me, and they kept disabling it. It just was a cat and mouse game. Being that I hardly ever saw my son, I could see what he was doing, and it was stomach churning. It was, I would be nauseous sometimes for days looking at what he was accessing, looking at the fetish that he had developed, which doesn't even remotely look like sex. The damage to this child, it was horrible. And
a 14-year-old shouldn't be looking at this kind of stuff anyway. He should have been removed from your ex's custody and residence. He should have been placed with you, and he should have been put on supervised visitation with the father.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I asked for. I said, look, why don't we continue the way we always have? The children live with me, and we had worked out a kind of thing. I mean, the intimacy in the marriage, that wasn't happening, but we had this friendship for raising the children. And he had a little library thing. He took them to the library, he took them to the pool. We had worked out a system that was working, and the children were doing well. But anyways, upsetting to talk about it because unless you've experienced it, how extremely fake it is. Anyway, but coming up to the custody trial, the only thing that was developed prior to that is this court order. And it makes my ex-husband extremely happy. He's grinning about it. Well, immediately he starts disabling aspects of it, and just it turned into a way to torture me. First of all, I'm seeing when it is functioning and not disabled, there is an onslaught of horrendous material coming through, and then I have to report that to my ex, who then abuses me for reporting it to him. But that's written into the order that I have to tell him, oh, by the way, he's watching and collecting drugged rape porn, whatever he's looking at. It's, okay, so then I have to report everything to him. And then, of course, he responds to that by being abusive to me, or he punishes me by then not letting me see our son.
It is a ridiculous court order. It's like you have to tell the perpetrator what they're perpetrating.
Yes. Here's where it gets really cruel. So, of course, all I did was report to the perpetrator where there were holes in his system of hiding the abuse.
Yeah.
And whenever I reported what was going on, he shut that window down. So after about 2 years of this court order, it was assisting him to be more stealth. And so I could actually see them through the monitoring software. I could see them downloading the most sophisticated encryption, military-grade encryption, programs to scrub the hard drive. They're buying new equipment. Yeah, they're buying extra storage, extra hard drives. So it's all documented. Yeah, I've got all that. But
But this
again,
went on for 2 years?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then every time I tried to go to court to show somebody what I'm picking up, I succeeded in getting to court twice. Well, they wouldn't let me present the evidence or speak. So yes, very, very bizarre. So, at every point where something normal and that cares about a child's welfare, at every point, the most absurd and corrupt thing happens, not a normal thing at all. Anyway, just the absurd custody trial. The custody evaluator agrees with me that our child needs residential treatment. He should return there. And he says to me, but you know what? No judge, your ex-husband isn't going to agree. No judge will agree unless less restrictive outpatient treatment has been attempted. So you're going to have to attempt that again. And he says to share something, it's probably not going to work. Your son is very damaged, and he's corroborating everything that I've ever said. So he tells me this, and then he says that he's going to call a meeting that he's never done before, where both parents attend a meeting with him. And he's going to discuss treatment for our son that really needs to happen. So I agreed to this meeting, but the problem I always had, if I go to a joint session of anything with my ex-husband at this point, he accosts me in the parking lot. And, it's at the very least, he'll verbally abuse me. He'll corner me. It's not good at all. And
I know all of
he's
these
aggressive toward me at this point.
Even mediation, even court-mandated mediation, and all these types of situations where you're placed in the same space with the abuser, that shouldn't even be happening in family court. That's beside the fact that your kid is living with the abuser, which is ridiculous. But if you're a domestic violence victim, you should never be placed in the same courtroom.
It's contraindicated with any normal mental health professional. You don't do that in a domestic abuse situation. All right, so now I'm being forced to attend a joint session, and I do it because I say to myself, well, if it's going to help my son, I'll do it. But I do tell the custody evaluator, I say, listen, let's work out a little safety protocol at this point. And so he seems a bit disgruntled, I'm being annoying or whatever, but he consents, that we'll have staggered arrival and departure times, so that the only time I see my ex is when I'm in the presence of the custody evaluator. So, my ex can't corner me and verbally abuse me or try to run me over and anything like that. But at this point, I need to tell you something. There's been an assault. And here's what happened. I had, my own laptop and my son's laptop. And just to make a long story short, oh man, this is not good. Okay, so during the custody evaluation period, about a three or 4 month period, the Thanksgiving holiday came up. And I've been complaining that I'm not seeing my son. I don't get to see him. I'm worried about him. Look at what he's accessing. So the custody evaluator facilitated a Thanksgiving family visiting arrangement that would actually happen. And I would get to take my eldest child for Thanksgiving for 3-4 days, and be able to go to a relative's house so that he can see the relatives and be cheered up and get on a different page. You shouldn't be doing all that. And so we do that, but they say, well, but your son should take his laptop. So during the entire visit, my son is Velcroed to the laptop. It was very hard to get him to even participate in the visit or leave the hotel. But again, I can see what he's doing, and it's horrendous. He's sharing all kinds of gruesome things with his peers. He's not doing his schoolwork. So, but we managed to have a good visit. Regardless, I try to chill about what he's doing on there. I just wanted to be with him, and so there are a lot of nice moments, that we have together in the relative's house, and then I fly back to our home area. Meanwhile, the younger children have visited with their dad, and they've had a nice Thanksgiving holiday with him. And I arrive back, and taking a taxi from the airport with my child. We have our laptops with us. My ex-husband sent me 2 emails saying, I'm really tired. I'm going to bed early. I'm going to leave the apartment door open and just use your fob to get in the building, and don't disturb me. The door will be open. So it was a little bit odd that he sent me 2 emails saying that's what we're going to do, right? So then I get to the apartment parking lot, dark, very dark, in the taxi with my son, and we get out of the taxi with our bags and our laptops, and then my ex-husband pops out from between parked cars. No, he's not sleeping. And he then directs my son to, by force, take my laptop and take back his own laptop. And so then there's a struggle, and I've been in a dark parking lot with my big 15-year-old and being directed by the father. And, in the darkness and during the struggle, I can see his face and he's grinning. And that actually really freaked me out. But I could also glimpse at times my son's face, and he looked devastated. He didn't look happy at all about being told to do that to his mother. So somehow or another, I managed to grab, body hug my laptop. And no, I don't know how I did it. Did I grab both laptops somehow, tripping over the luggage? I dive back into the taxi and lock the doors. And then he begins to scream at me and circle the taxi. And he circles the taxi and he's screaming insults at me, and he's screaming about, you're going to lose all custody. Dr. Salmon, I was going to see what a bad mother you are. And my son is standing there, and he looks devastated that his father is, screaming out all these things at me. And so I had to call the police. The taxi driver, I was like, could you just go? And he wouldn't leave. I don't know. Maybe that's a rule of taxi drivers. So then I'm stuck there. And I did have to call the police. And they came, about 4 of them. And they made sure that my laptop was returned to me. I see I'm blanking out even now, because at this point, I've developed PTSD at this point. Let's see. They made sure that my laptop was returned to me, and also my son's laptop. They made sure that was with me, and we were finally allowed to leave. And then I took my son's laptop immediately to the forensic specialist. He's a real specialist that he's approved to do computer forensics for a court report. And that's when he finds a huge amount. We've already had a computer forensics. Now there's even more anal porn, just vast quantities that clearly my son is even organizing really well. I won't go into how, but, according to what's going on. Just a huge amount of that. And then there's also the big thing was then the rape simulator. The Japanese rape simulator is on there. And this is when I'm told it's a slam dunk. And so, of course, that's why they tried to take the laptop by force, right? And so, my ex-husband didn't deny that the incident occurred. He just said that I was a bad mother to take away my son's laptop because he needed it to do homework. And then he's also saying, it's absurd. And then he's also saying that he didn't do anything bad by arranging that ambush. Because he was the referee. He characterized it as a conflict
Let's zoom
between the
out a
bad,
little bit
right, yeah.
because
So
we're getting very details. I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
zoom
and
out.
then this is all leading up to the custody trial. So
All right.
the discovery of the rape simulator then leads to a court order for computer supervision, yet other than that, no preparation. So then it's like 2-3 days before the custody trial, and my attorney sends me a custody agreement written by my ex's attorney, and he tells me to sign it. And if I don't sign it, he's going to quit. And it was a terrible agreement. It was just not addressing, I guess it was giving 50-50, as if there were no issues. It was written as if there were no issues, and the only thing included was they included the computer supervision provisions. Other than that absurdity. Other than that, it's a perfectly normal custody agreement that doesn't protect the younger children at all from the same thing happening. And yeah, but I think it's important. We later found out that there'd been a sexual assault during the Thanksgiving visit. About 9 months down the road, we find out that, look, again, a relative that we visited during the Thanksgiving visit, that my eldest son did some sexual groping, really, really inappropriate, and that relative was absolutely freaked out, and did report that to me. So yeah, that's a very disturbing thing to find out. This child is only 15, and according to that relative, had done some sort of molestation to, this is an adult female, a relative. And this is not trending well, right? No, not at all. This child is being sort of deliberately corrupted and groomed. So we're still going into the custody trial. And I think I just want to backtrack to the custody evaluator. We have the meeting, and he announces that he has found a treatment provider, and this is going to be a very strict outpatient treatment. So we have now, he's saying that there's going to be, that the father is going to have to consent to an outpatient treatment provider. It'll be written into the custody agreement. And then the custody evaluator says, let's have one more meeting before the custody trial. And it was my understanding that it was going to be another meeting discussing the welfare of our son. So there is one more meeting with the custody evaluator prior to the custody trial. And this is when I was blindsided. During that meeting, my ex-husband wouldn't really allow me to speak. He just shouted at me, and he mocked me, and he was browbeating me, and just very verbally abusive. It was terrible. And the custody evaluator just sat there. And then the custody evaluator pulled out a draft custody document. He kind of just jotted down, right? Again, it's just going to be normal, very normal. Lots of, completely, like, it's 50-50. It's as if there's no problems at all. And the only thing written in is that there'll be outpatient treatment and computer supervision. And I'm told, you need to sign that. I'm like, well, whoa, my attorney's not even here. I'm blindsided. But also it was such an awful session with the bullying, browbeating from my ex, and the mocking, that I just didn't say anything much at all. But I did not agree to sign it. I said, no, that doesn't make any sense. It does not protect the children. Anyway, so then, but the session it's only an hour, so the session is over with. I wait in the office, and my ex leaves, and I wait at least 30 minutes to make sure he's gone before I attempt to leave and get in my car. And I just left a note for the custody evaluator. He went on to his next client, and I left a note for him saying, I cannot agree to that custody document that you drafted. I can't agree to that. It doesn't protect our child. And then I also tell him what I found the night before. Now we have something else going on. I found my son is involved in an international gay men like website where images are exchanged. There's even and my son's images there and how to contact him, his picture. And it appears to be, where underage boys and men can meet each other, but it's from all over the world. So that's more stuff that I've found that is very disturbing. I left him a note saying that's what I found, and then he emailed everyone saying, the mother has, I thought we had an agreement. I thought things were going to be smooth, but the mother tells me that this is something she's found. And, weirdly, again, no reaction to that. It appears as though our son is out there interacting on a website that has sexual tourism to go tour Indonesia and other places to access little boys.
Okay, what's the name of this custody evaluator?
Oh, this is Dr. Stanton Samanow. Okay.
All right. Well, he's been exposed now for being a child abuser and condoning child molestation.
Yeah. No calls to anyone about this. But wait a minute. Here's where it gets interesting. Because the therapist from the treatment center and the social worker had called CPS, apparently they were looking into things. I didn't know if they were taking the case or not. Apparently during this time period, they were. And I obtained their complete records. And guess what I found? Dr. Samanow and who else? And the policeman, the detective investigating all of this, Dr. Samanow, what they're telling CPS, they're not mentioning any of this. Not at all. Not at all. No mention that there's issues with the father or webcamming internationally or the rape simulator, child porn, none of this. Okay. None of the mutilation porn. It's just utterly bizarre. No. Literally the only thing that's said is this. Well, I think the detective tells CPS, we really didn't find much at all. We just saw maybe a few videos of adult porn. Very, very invalidating of me. And then
it is international child trafficking, and let me share my screen here and share this website. This is an incredibly good website that documents exactly what you are explaining, how this is organized, and how it's done through the judicial system. And through the governments, that there's entire policy in organizing this type of child trafficking to abusive fathers involving pedophilia. Very famous case here, the Hampstead case. I know CCN has done several programs on that topic. For anyone who is thinking that your story is some kind of an exception, I would tell them that it is more the norm, the grim reality of institutionalized abuse, than an exception. And for anyone who has questions what you're saying or is just not hip to any of this, I highly recommend this website. It's Ain't Sophia. thebigpicture.wordpress.com is an incredible website. It's a lot to stomach because it also gets into the satanic ritual abuse of children, which goes way up in the political leaders of our world, and how it's covered up, same as in your case, how the evidence is not admitted into court, how the court professionals are hiding any kind of evidence. And so this is standard, what you're
Right, absolutely. And it is very disturbing. All Dr. Samanel told CPS, nothing negative about the father. He said the mother just wants to control everything. Honestly,
right. They turn it around. They turn it around. It is the way the psychopaths work is they will always turn everything onto the victim. The victim becomes the perpetrator. So this is they mirror everything back.
Right. And he told them, but he also they always try to kind of cover their tracks and kind of make it look legit. I think that he says, really everything is very well under control because we have identified treatment for the child. So all he's saying is mom wants to control everything. We found treatment, and of course this child is going to continue to live in the place where all of this is being facilitated and is going on. And it just got worse from there. So then now let's see, my attorney has quit. I've been blindsided by the custody evaluator. I can't sign off on the child continuing to live there. And what was very weird is when the custody evaluator emailed both attorneys about what mom had just uncovered, the silence was deafening. No response at all. That's rather strange, isn't it? But anyway, with all of this going on, I am left with going to the custody trial by myself. And I found an attorney out of the phone book on a Sunday afternoon, paid a retainer, and then she accompanied me to court. She wasn't up to date on the case. I tried to get her up to date. I asked for a continuance. Judge Charles Mansfield, or is it Maxfield? I blank out that man's name. I think it's Mansfield. It's
Mansfield. You told me this before.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's this whole thing. It's just so then it was really a horrible but brief. He gave me 20 minutes. He didn't really allow me to speak. Everybody showed up for it, He said, well, you can go out in the hallway. You have 20 minutes to talk to the other side and come up with a custody agreement. And if you don't do that, we're having the trial. And I'm not giving you a continuance. And then when I tried to tell him about what was going on, I also, at this point, there's an open criminal investigation about my ex-husband, kidnapping the child from a treatment center and all the things that are going on. And I tried to say, but Your Honor, I actually can't openly discuss all the details because I'll be jeopardizing the investigation. And no, he just, told me to be quiet. And he kind of looked at me as if I was a bucket of vomit. But he's all like it was so awful. And then with my ex's attorney, they're joking. They're all cutesy and joking around with each other. But yeah, whenever he looks in my direction, I actually thought there was something disgusting behind me. I turned around to look. I mean, why is he looking at me that way? No, he was looking at me. Anyway, I got 20 minutes in the hall, and my new attorney was able to get some protections inserted into the custody document for the younger children. They're not to access any devices whatsoever.
This is ridiculous.
But it was ridiculous.
It's patchwork. He should have been, that judge should have said, look, there's a criminal investigation going on into child abduction. This is not going to be any custody trial.
Right.
The father's put on supervised visitation, and the child is going to be Mom, and that's the end of it.
It's a slam dunk. There, yeah, this is all nonsense. But let me tell you, this is not lack of training on the part of that judge. No, he absolutely knew I was telling the truth. He knew both sides had told him what's going on. He knew what was going on. That's why he shut it down. Really?
I'm going to share my screen here because what's going on in your case is a child sex trafficking that involves the Justice Department. It involves the FBI. This is what's going on in the American family court system as well as in the global family court system. This is what's happening in the Netherlands, big time, Belgium, Germany, all over the world. The children are trafficked to pedophiles. This is how child pornography is created. Like you said, they're groomed from a young age on to accept it, to participate in it, and to get away with it. And any mothers reporting it are being made into the perpetrators. They use the bullshit parental alienation syndrome, which is known to be a hoax, invented by a pedophile himself, Richard Gardner, in the 1980s. To set this up, it is a pedophile agenda. And I kind of want to get to this because we have about half an left.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I want to talk about the pedophile agenda because this is where we're at right now in your story. You have all this evidence and it's not allowed to be admitted, and they're just going to harass you about details that have nothing to do with what's really going on, and that is the fact that
all the money out. They will keep you. They will pretend that they've got just yet another expert that really we have to have that person involved, and they'll keep you going around in pointless, endless, fake. It's a scam, and it circles, and you lose all of your money. It is abusive emotionally and financially, right? And things actually got worse in terms of now, later on in this case, not surprisingly, this child is now making his own porn in Dad's living room, using handcuffs purchased on Dad's credit card, purchasing anal sex toys. So then I discovered all that too. Still, we keep the child right there. And
you lost the child. At this point, it's gone. It doesn't matter what evidence you gather, and it's a lost cause. I mean, the soul of your child is destroyed at this point.
And all of this is publicly, and a lot of these websites are still there. He is involving now other minors, and though their images.
Yeah, this is what happens in a lot of these cases. The children who are groomed and then trained become the handlers because the younger children will feel more comfortable with an older child rather than an adult. So they become the handlers of the younger children, and they become part of the pedophile trafficking system, and they think it's all normal because they've been raised with it. So this is what's going on. And I want you shared a link with me that I wanted to also share with the audience here. Let me share my screen here about your brain on porn. And this is kind of a scientific research studies and the results of what porn is doing to the brain, and this is about adult users. So just imagine what porn is doing to the brain of a young child who's still developing. This is a real problem. I know there's this website that you also shared with me. It's called Fight the New Drug. It's about fighting internet pornography. Anyone who's struggling with this particular issue in the family, please visit this. I am happy to see that there's more attention on this topic. And I also wanted to share, I was just watching TV yesterday, and I had CNN on, or BBC News, and it was about Pamela Anderson, of all people, who came out with this new campaign to urge men to give up pornography, since it is corrosive and morally corrupting. And she's doing that together with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, and I hope I am pronouncing his name correctly. If I don't, my apologies. But I thought this was an interesting development. People criticize her for doing this, but I think actually, since she was the Baywatch queen, so to speak, I think this is actually a very appropriate thing to do, and I applaud it, because this is infecting our children. And what I want to go next to is why this is happening, because a lot of people are going to wonder, like, well, why is this allowed? And there is, like I said, there's a real pedophile ring in the areas of politics and
Washington metropolitan area is a nexus, a hub of human trafficking, and it is, McLean is a really, really saturated, with a lot of problems. We have certain, even Supreme Court judges from McLean, and his grandchildren went to school with my children, and we have a lot of very high-profile individuals, even in the judicial system, that basically they're just making sure that they're grooming and they're placing judges in the family court system who will look the other way. It's deliberate. It's absolutely deliberate. Yeah.
And this deliberateness is happening at a global scale. And I'll share my screen again to take you to this particular article that I shared on my Free Jasmine from Court-Ordered Abduction Facebook page on June 26th about the European Union's policy to try and legalize pedophilia and child pornography. They didn't get away with it, but they certainly tried. And for those folks who question that the validity of that article, I have attached here several articles that actually validate the article. If this is particularly over here, the War on Children, the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Agenda. The UN decided in 1985 to train children through the public school system to actually explore their sexuality starting at age 1 to 3. By the time they're 5 in kindergarten, they're learning to put on condoms. You can look at this over here. Outrageous 5-year-olds get sex education on how to achieve orgasms and put condoms on. This is from the Daily Mail. I mean, these are legitimate articles. The Telegraph. You can look this up. I really highly recommend that you watch particularly this link here. It's a movie, takes about 20 minutes, and it explains how this UN agenda is spread all over the world. All over the world, children are learning they're becoming sexualized, and this is happening in kindergarten. So if you have children, you might want to go and check out what is going on at your schools. If you think it's not happening at your schools, think again. This is really happening all over the world, and parent organizations all over the world are shocked, and they are fighting this tooth and nail, thank God. but I want everyone to get on board with this, because what's happened to you is extreme, but the children are groomed at a global scale to participate in this sexualization agenda for these pedophiles. I'm here in the Netherlands. We actually had a pedophile political party. And here in Germany, they actually had an entire campaign to legalize pedophilia. So this is outrageous, and I really want to for people to think about what's going on. This is something I just posted on my timeline just 7 hours ago. Here is a bunch of 6th graders taught how to use strap-on dildos and what you can do with it. Now, when I posted this, some moms said, well, that's not a real, that's a fake website. But no, there were some other protective mothers who actually researched this, and this is actually really happening. This happened at a school in Florida. This particular teacher is now fired, but this actually went down, I believe, in an 8th grade class, where she is showing how to what you can do with a dildo. I mean,
in that image, she says it's in a classroom in Nebraska, which Nebraska is. I think Omaha, Nebraska, huge problem.
This is not in Nebraska. This is
it isn't in Florida.
In Florida. So the article is not quite correct, but it did actually occur. It is a valid article. So if you follow my my Free Jasmine Facebook page, then you can follow these stories, because I post them continuously. I post all kinds of news that I find on this topic. Here you see, for example, an arrest of 1,000 suspected predators during a nationwide child sex abuse sting. I'll tell you though, because I've been doing this for about 1.5 years now, and the FBI is in on this. They actually have their own websites where they supposedly, post porn to attract predators, but they're actually creating it themselves, and the amount of predators that they actually catch is way, it's maybe 1% of what's actually going on. Here's an article of the Daily Mail that nails it all. There are so many pedophiles, we can't jail them all, says the police chief. And then he says he calls for a softer approach at low-level crime. Yeah. It's like, no. Just because there's more people participating, and it doesn't mean we should be have a softer approach. Quite the contrary, as a matter of fact. This is England. And as we all know, pedophilia and child pornography is going up all the way into Parliament. You can even be part of the UK Parliament if you're not a pedophile, from what I've seen from the articles that are appearing in the mainstream media as well, which I'm happy to see, because we cannot accept any of this. We have to have a giant, massive, global outrage about this, and we need to go hunt these pedophiles down. Instead of hunting mother. Right. I know my mic is distorting a little bit, so I sometimes have to in and out. I hope this is better. Anyway, that's a little bit of my my rant on that particular topic. And if you want to read more about why this is happening, you can go to my website here and read this reflection page. And all the links that are on there show academic research and show all the source data as to how the children are trafficked, why they are trafficked, particularly also the amount of money that's being made from this. And I just want to touch on that real quick before we get back to your story, because we have about 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure that the viewers know where you are right now and what you're doing. But here you see that the global annual amount that's estimated with this judicial child trafficking, with the CPS trafficking that's happening also in conjunction with the foster care system, and of course the pedophile mafia, and the drugging of our children, the mental health industry, the drugging of babies and toddlers with all kinds of experimental drugs, as well as antidepressants and whatnot, to make them comply to this pedophile agenda, is generating around $3 trillion a year, which is more than the global illegal weapons and drug trade combined. There are currently 42 million U.S. victims of child sexual abuse. You can see the numbers over here as well. The incredible amount of children and adults that are affected, and the corrupting of society as a whole, of human development.
Yes, that's what our GAL said would happen and should happen. Utterly bizarre. You know, in my case, eventually GAL was appointed by Judge Lorraine Nordland, and this was their ultimate way to shut me down. So eventually we got to an absurd trial, and there wasn't, of course, I wasn't allowed to speak or present evidence. Judge Lorraine Nordland came out and said, oh, this is a very serious case. We need a GAL to investigate to see if any of this is true and to represent the viewpoint of this teenager. So then, nothing happened again. And then we got the GAL, who was spectacularly corrupt. This is Michael S. Arif. He said, I don't need to meet with mother or see or talk to any of her witnesses. I've already decided what I think of this case. Yeah, ridiculous. Of course, I advocated to meet with him. I did meet with him. It was a very disturbing interview where he told me that hardcore is the new norm, and that our society is moving in the direction of being like the days of Caligula, and none of this is a problem. And by now in the case, my son is heavily into drugs that he's being given to him by his dad. They're using together. There's cocaine going on in that apartment, and it's all filtering through. You know, they keep turning off the parental monitoring, and then I go in and I switch it back on, and trickling through our chats where it is clear that there's a lot of drugs going on in that apartment with father and son and all of the teenagers too. So, but this is the GAL, and eventually there's a letter where he says, yes, there are images of child porn. But maybe this boy should just go to a private school, and then at another point he decides. The only thing that worried him during my interview, and eventually I presented him with all of the evidence. He told me drugs were not a problem, sexual images not a problem for this boy. My son will probably never go anywhere anyway, but none of this is really a problem. He's allowed to do it. It's his right to do it. What
the hell? What's the name of this guardian ad litem?
Oh, he's a nightmare. Michael S. Arif. He is a criminal defense attorney who specializes in defending human traffickers, child pornographers, and drug traffickers. Those are his specialties. That's why he was chosen to shut me down.
I'm going to share my screen and show a letter that he wrote that you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
And here he says, he basically states that We jointly came to the conclusion that under the proper set of circumstances, the trial judge could very well be a mandatory reporter as to the production and publication of child pornography. I presume that you are aware of the consequences, criminal, civil, and personal, that can befall a person targeted as a child pornographer. Those consequences can ruin a life. Yeah, we definitely need to protect the child pornographer, right? Frankly, only, and then it's blanks, is in possession of the suspect's graphic images, and thus it is testimony on that subject with which I'm most concerned. If there's testimony of that nature, whether it's treated in a residential treatment facility or on an outpatient basis, will be the least of his concerns. I am not in any way attempting to influence any testimony, but one must consider the consequences of such testimony. I strongly encourage the parties to resolve this dispute, as it's truly decomposing right before our eyes. And this is your son.
He describes our child as decomposing. And that's certainly true, right?
The closer we get to trial date, the more school he misses and the worse his grades get, and the greater likelihood of his grades falling to a point where they cannot be remedied. This is the guardian ad litem, people. Mm-hmm. We're talking Fairfax County, Virginia.
But you know, he's a member of a special website. I think I should let people know that and it's by invitation only. It's called falseallegations.org. And that's where they specialize in saying that whatever the protective parent alleges, they're going to say that's not taking place, and that, you're merely being vindictive. So the only thing that worries him is
institutionalized narcissism. Institutionalized narcissism, sadistic pedophiles who claim that the protective mothers are creating false allegations against the known to be pedophile, child molesting, child pornography creating fathers.
Yes. I mean, and his final evil deed in this case is that he conveyed a threat to my attorneys and to the custody evaluator that if I didn't shut up, if I didn't stop advocating for appropriate treatment, if I didn't shut my mouth about all of this stuff, if I continued to try to go to court to try to get the judge to see what was going on, he was planning on doing the following. He actually held a mini press conference in the courthouse announcing that he had decided that I was insane. Yeah, there you go. Right. It's kind of pathetic, but that he's decided that I'm insane and imagining all this. Therefore, and let's see, and then any medical problems of the younger children, I have caused that. So what he'll do is he'll take, next time we get in front of a family court judge, he is going to ask the judge to have me, evaluated for being insane and for causing medical problems in one of the younger children who has a very
you're to blame. I mean, all protective mothers are to blame. And
I got inside the sonogram machine and gave him a kidney infection.
They might even lock you up in a mental institution and say, look, she's really crazy. Have someone sign off on that.
Exactly. What they'll do, and this is formula as well. So then you get to your next family court appointment, and then he'll come out and say, really, Judge, the issue is that mom's insane and harming the younger children. So while we have her evaluated, take all the children away from her, right, while we get her evaluated, and then give them to the dad. And then end of story. Yeah, at that point. Yeah.
That's how it goes, and we have about 5 minutes left, and what I really want to do here is share this website. It's called Secrets to Success in Fairfax Family Court. It is the most hilariously satirical website about the family court fix is on. We can guarantee the divorce and custody outcome that you want. It's like, the most funny and at the same time harshly sad website I've ever seen, and I wanted to share this with the audience because it just outlines exactly how the family court is set up to steal your children from you and how they do it. I've never seen anything like this. If you go to the testimonials, of course, this is all total sarcastic joking.
Yeah, it's a funny website. It's kind of like satire.
It's total satire. I highly recommend it. Please go check it out. It's really funny. And at the same time really, really sharp. So I wanted to share that before we say goodbye. Humor can shine light into even the darkest places, and I respect and admire the fact that you're, as because I've talked to you in other circumstances as well, that you're able to keep that sense of humor and look at the absurdity of this. These human rights violations are so gross, and the way they're orchestrated is just like a script. It's an absurd script. I highly recommend everyone to document their cases, to document every conversation they have, every email that they have, keep track of it, and expose the individuals. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for being brave to come on and exposing these individuals that are part of this pedophile, child sex trafficking ring in Fairfax, Virginia. So thank you. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being, it's a terrible, terrible situation. And I hope that there will be a day that your son will understand how he's been purposefully and intentionally been damaged, and that he can find a way back to his true original soul purpose in life, and hopefully turn his life 360 degrees and help other child victims of this.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, you're doing wonderful work that, we've got to protect the children. And, it's an emergency situation. This is going on routinely. Yeah, and it doesn't matter how fabulous your evidence is. We have a corrupt psychiatrist in our case, and he was chastised by the medical board for his misdeeds in our case, but it doesn't matter. They're all in on it together, and they're making sure that the cases are rigged and that you are separated. You're taken
this is
out
why
of the trial.
This is why we all need to attend the Mothers of Lost Children events and other events, and really speak out, create websites, put your material out there so we can bundle our efforts.
And join together.
I hope this program also contributes to spreading awareness of what it's like for us as mothers being victims of child sex trafficking like this. So thank you for being on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the viewers for watching another episode of Hell's for Children, and I hope you will join me again next Saturday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.